So I just got back from Rome. This is my first time I have flown internationally, and I just thought it would be fun to share some healthy habits that I have while I'm traveling because I know for a lot of us, summer is coming up soon and we're traveling, or even when we have those weekend trips when we go away to something. So I'm just going to give you some things that I do specifically for me so you don't have to repeat or do everything exactly like me, but maybe it will give you some ideas or a starting point to think about for yourself. Hi friends, and welcome to the Healthy Beyond 40 show. I'm Michele, mama 4 and military wife, and I'm passionate about helping women get healthy from the inside out so they can feel better and live their best life. Do you feel like you're struggling to lose weight and get in shape? If you're ready to develop healthier habits, exercise consistently, and lose weight sustainably, then you're in the right place. I combine my expertise from my doctorate in physical therapy to my experience as a health coach, personal trainer, and yoga teacher to bring you actionable steps for a healthy lifestyle. No magic pill here, so lace up those shoes and get moving. All right, so let's get started and let me tell you a little about my trip. And so the first thing is the way I set it up. So we chose to do an Airbnb where we would have a kitchen. Typically in Rome, a lot of the hotels are super tiny. And so this trip was my husband and me and our oldest daughter, who is 18. She went with us. So since we had her with us, we knew we couldn't really quite do a hotel there because the hotels are tiny and typically one bed. So we went with the Airbnb so that we could have the kitchen. So this typically meant that we had breakfast at the apartment. And so we would just have simple things. So there was a small supermarket where you could get fruits and vegetables, meats and packaged foods. And they had a little bit of everything, not like a huge store or anything. So we had breakfast there. For me, I typically had an apple with peanut butter. And sometimes I would also have like a rice cake with peanut butter with that if I was hungry. I would have liked to have like breakfast sausage or something like that, but they just did not really have that there. It was sort of surprising why we were in Rome in general. The meals just didn't have as much meat. They were definitely more carb heavy. So we would have our breakfast at the apartment, and then we typically would eat lunch out because we would go do a tour or walk around, and then we would have lunch out. And then for dinner, we would typically then eat at the apartment again. And again, it was simple things like a salad with some meat on it, and we had a pan so we could cook some chicken. My daughter, she ended up eating a lot of pasta still at home, but it was easy enough for me to have some healthy options and to get some vegetables and to have some protein too. So that only left us with one meal a day that we were eating out. So that right there allows us to eat more healthy options when we're just eating out less. The next thing that was easily incorporated into this vacation, not all the ones I go on, we just did a lot of walking. I think typically we are walking 6 to 8 miles a day. That's what, I don't have an Apple Watch or anything, but just the health app on my iPhone gave that. So I think that was like 20,000 steps was the top. And sometimes I think it doesn't even always work right. But so we walked a lot and we were just standing a lot. It was so interesting. Even by the afternoon after walking and just standing all day, I would feel it in my back a little bit because at home I can be up and down a lot, but I do sit a little bit. So I think that was just something new for my body, just standing and being up for a really long time. So we were just active a lot. So I didn't do any extra workouts. I would sometimes in the evening do some stretching, like as a calming sort of routine, put on some calming music and stretch a little bit because that did feel good too. So I think it's always important when we're on a vacation, how can we get that movement in? Is it walking a lot? Is it, I'm going to do 15-minute workouts before we go out and do something? But really trying to keep some consistency there. So it's not going to be the same as what I always do. Typically, I walk each day, but I'm also doing yoga or strength training. It's going to be different, but I'm still thinking about how am I moving, because it just makes my body feel better when I do that. The third piece is just being aware of portions. And I will say, for the most part in Italy, they eat smaller portions than we do here in America. And even I'm not like a big drink person to get coffees or sodas or things like that, but even the drink portions were smaller there. And if you were at a restaurant, they would bring like someone a can of Coca-Cola instead of, a fountain drink where you have this huge drink and you're getting refills. So the idea of just being aware of the portion size. So without tracking food, just paying attention to what you're eating, asking yourself, am I still hungry? Or am I just eating this because it's here? And noticing that if you're getting hungry, to stop eating. And you can, at least this was another nice thing with the apartment, we had the refrigerator. So I know there was one time I got a pizza and I didn't eat it all. I was able to bring it back. So we don't have to clean our plate. We don't have to stuff ourselves. So this can make a big difference too when we're not overeating. And I know it never feels good to me when I overeat. And I think as my husband and I are getting older, we start noticing we get reflux. He just last night ate out with my boys because they had sports and stuff. So he was out with them and they got some fast food and he was taking Tums because he overate, and it's crappy food that we don't normally eat. And I think the more we have ate healthier stuff and the more we're in tune and we don't stuff ourselves, the more we're going to notice those effects, that it really doesn't feel good when we do that. So maybe you're not there yet, but thinking how we can sort of stay in tune with our portions while we're traveling. Like I said, I ate the pizza, so that's not something I normally eat very often. I think I had 2 pizza days while we were there in just 1 week. So that would definitely be unusual for me. But I was able to still be aware of how much I was eating and not overdo it. And I don't even think once I remember feeling like stuffed in Italy, because that stuffed feeling doesn't even feel good to me. Every once in a while, I will do that when I'm eating something good and, I'm just started eating too fast and it hasn't caught up with me. But so paying attention so we're not having that stuffed feeling. Another tip here is just being able to enjoy some treats without going all the way in. So gelato is really big in Italy. And I'm really not even much of a sweet person. I hardly ever eat sweets. My go-to would be more having something savory or something cheesy. But I did have gelato, I think 3 times while we were there. I think my daughter, she got it every day. And that was fine. But I was able to eat gelato without going overboard. So I was able to have a small portion of it. And this would be typically after a meal. So this is just a blood sugar tip here, is if you're eating your meal, hopefully some protein and fiber. If you have your sweet after that, then your blood sugar isn't going to spike as high. So if you have a high sugar treat on an empty stomach, typically that blood sugar is going to spike higher. So it was typically after we ate something, it was a small portion, and it wasn't like I was stuffed or full and didn't need anything. It's not like I was necessarily like hungry, and I didn't have to get it every single time. Like I said, my daughter, she pretty much got gelato, or I think she got like a cannoli one day, but I didn't have to get a sweet every day. So it wasn't about restriction. It was just about being intentional and not feeling like I had to overdo it. Not having that FOMO, that like fear of missing out. So being able to enjoy it without going all in. And again, sticking to those same things of portions. I had a small portion. One time we got this really cute gelato that came in a lemon. So they had like scooped all of it out, and it was like a huge lemon and stacked up double high. And then the other lemon was on top, and I just split it with my daughter because, it would be way too big for me. I don't need that much. And that worked really well. Another thing I really try to keep well is having a little bit of an evening routine. And especially for me, I'm just someone who needs a good amount of wind down time before I go to bed. Not everyone is like this, but I know this in myself that I need some time to unwind. Most nights I normally have a cup of tea at home, like chamomile and lavender tea. So I still had my tea. I had that time to slow down. I typically do like a 5-minute prayer with an app called like a daily examine. So it just helps you to prayerfully examine your day just really quick. Sort of those things you're grateful for, maybe those things that didn't go well, some emotions that came up, and what you want to be intentional about tomorrow. So right now that is something I normally do. So I kept those up. So it wasn't anything long or complicated. And like I said before, some nights I would also just turn on some soft music and do some stretches because my body was a little achy just from being up more than it normally is. And then that was able to help me process my day, calm my body, and be able to sleep. So it's sort of thinking that mindset and my nervous system, what do I need to do to keep that sort of in my normal routine and feeling good too? And I'll also say with this trip to Rome, we left on a Tuesday morning and we got back really late on a Wednesday night. So it was just like 8 days. But obviously we had 2 very big time changes going there and coming back. And normally if we go on like a week vacation, I'm like right back into what I normally do. But when we came back this time, Thursday, I was just exhausted, like brain foggy, couldn't even like think right. So I did a walk that day, but I didn't work out. And Friday, I felt like I was coming around the corner a little bit better. But I just waited till Monday to actually start my workouts. I did do walks, and on the weekend, we started doing a landscaping project, so that was sort of like a physical strength workout. But I gave myself that little bit of grace period too to still get movement, to still do those things that feel good, but not quite back into my program. And when I started on the Monday, which was yesterday as I'm recording this, I hadn't done strength training for almost a couple weeks. So that's like really long for me. So I took it easier because I'm like, I don't want to be super sore. So if you take 2 weeks off, sometimes even a week, and you sort of jump back to right where you are, you can almost push yourself to do that, but it's going to leave you super sore. So this week I'm just sort of taking it back gently, but I'm building that consistency, getting back into my normal routine. Like Monday I do strength training. Today's going to be a yoga day, and it keeps switching the rest of the day, and I'm keeping up with my walks. So getting back into that normal routine when you get back. And so normally, like I said, if it's just a normal stateside vacation, you know, that's a Monday to Saturday or something like that, I would get right back to it. But I knew my body needed a little bit more time to recover from this big trip. So I encourage you to think about if you're going to travel, or if you have weekend trips, or even holiday get-togethers or work events, whatever that may be, is really thinking about how you can be intentional. How just because you're doing those things doesn't mean you have to give up on your healthy habits that you have. Or it also doesn't mean that you need to keep pushing off starting a healthy habit because you know you have these things coming up. And this is really where what I do with clients and really making sustainable changes is different from what the diet culture tells us, right? We have to follow keto. We have to follow all these things. We have to be super strict. And a lot of times that just doesn't go with life. It doesn't fit when we travel. And then when we come back, we feel like a failure. So being able to be intentional before you go on a trip, have some simple habits that you want to stick with, have an idea of how you might have some movement or exercise in there, and not think about perfection, but think about how you can have these healthy habits that really are sustainable. And a lot of times there's some mindset work that has to go on. You know, for example, with the sweets, it might be really hard for someone to like say no to sweets. Like I was sort of saying, I had it a few times. Like it really wasn't a big deal if my daughter got a sweet and I didn't. Like I really didn't feel an urge. But for someone else, there might be a pretty big urge there. So there might be some mindset and some deeper work to do around those things. So maybe for that person, if they haven't done that yet, maybe they are going to have a sweet every day. Maybe they're going to try to keep it to a smaller portion. So we're all on different parts in our journey. And our lives are all different. So there's going to be different steps and different things that each person's going to do. There is not a cookie cutter. And I encourage you that if you need some extra support along your health journey, to reach out for me. There's a free link in the description where you can just set up a free call with me to find out if we're a fit. So I'll be able to get to know you and maybe see those things you can work on, and you'll get to talk to me and see if that really is a fit for you. So it's no pressure. And I also offer a 10% discount for military, for teachers, and police force. So if that's you and you know having support would make a difference, and maybe it's something that you haven't tried. I don't know how many people I talk to, whether it's for coaching or even going to counseling or getting support in different areas of their life. It's like the last thing they want to do is to get someone to help them. But that's usually when someone can get in there and see these things that you can't do. A lot of times that's what starts creating that momentum going forward. All right, friends. So keep on moving, and I hope you have a great day.